Welcome back to the Scottish Rugby Blueprint Blether. I'm Duncan McKinstry, the State School Rugby Officer for the East Area, and once again, Scottish Rugby Schools Week is coming up. So we are joined by two teachers, school rugby champions, and coaches for Trinity Academy, Cammy Gray and Jake Porter. From the outside, at Trinity, everything's looking great this year. Your under-18s have won a title. You've obviously shared with me that you've got some new players in. So how's the season been so far from your perspective?
That's how it looks on the outside. From the inside, sometimes it can be a wee bit different. But just kind of one fact that kind of highlights the development that we've done in the last season. Last year, I took a team away with 13 players, lost 55-0. On the flip side of that, this season, I took the same squad, 24 players, beat them 57-12. So in terms of, I think the best thing that's happened has been the retention of players and then the development and trying to encourage new guys to join. We've had a few close games with private schools as well. We were in with a shout in the Schools Cup against Glasgow Academy. It was 2010 at one stage, lost the game 32-10. But I mean, that was never going to happen last year, so it's came leaps and bounds, and I think we need to give ourselves a pat on the back, even the development in the last 2 years with how we've grown the sport. That's from the under-18s kind of perspective, but it's good in and out.
Yeah, it's really positive. I think for me, coming into the school this year, just started this year, so I've been really lucky to almost have the benefit of Jake's first year of the coaching side of things, and he did a really good job with the group that he's got just now last year, which is, I think, made it really clear to the boys that we're coming up through the system, that it's a really good environment and something to be enjoyed and be part of. So they've really bought in the sort of S4 group this year, the under-16s. They've been brilliant as well, to go from potentially not having a team before the summer to then when I joined, I think they managed to rally themselves to get up to something like 25 players, which was awesome to start the year with. It's like anything, there's good and bad. Last week, as I was just saying, was the first week where we've potentially struggled to get a 15 out, but we still managed it, and the boys came together and they were brilliant to put in a performance. And then I think from that sort of lower end, the BGE level, you would call it, the S1 to S3, the numbers are slowly growing. The boys that we do have, Fraser and Callum, who do a lot of the school of rugby work, they do a great job at trying to rally the troops, and even the girls' game is growing very slowly, but we're building more opportunities for them as well to be involved. So I think overall it's pretty positive.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, like the S1 numbers that we've got, I think it's like over 20 at the minute. So, I mean, last year, I don't even think we had an S1 team. So I think Trinity itself has grown the reputation of being a rugby school, and then that's kind of feeding down into primary, and then guys, girls are buying into the sport come S1. Yeah, so it's good to see.
Well, that's excellent to hear. So what are your roles within the school rugby programme, and like your background in the sport that's kind of led you? I've obviously highlighted your teachers, your school rugby champions. You're also doing a bit of coaching. So what's your specific roles with the rugby programme at the school, and how have you kind of led into that point?
Well, for me it's easy being part of the PE department. It's something that makes the driving of the sport a lot easier if you've got someone in that department. Sort of, you're seeing them in that sport environment, and you can sort of handpick and really drive it from that side. It's also quite nice to have Jake, being an English teacher, sees them more sort of academic side as well. But in terms of our role this year, you're leading the 18s. I've taken the 16s this year. One of the things I want to get better at is seeing a bit more of the younger year groups and making sure that there's a clear sort of pathway through the school. But we do obviously our Tuesday, Thursday training sessions. One of the big things that we've added in this year is our morning strength and conditionings, which has been awesome. The fact that we've had a group of boys that have bought into that, to get young lads getting up before school to come in and do a gym session and sort of prepare their body for the physicality of the game is brilliant, and I think that needs to be something that is carried on through. Now as we come into that sort of after Easter, we go into the transition of seniors leaving, next year coming up, and we'll probably look to transition that and get the younger year groups like your S3s starting to work with the S4s, and S4s potentially working with S5s for the next year. But we kind of oversee as much as we can, but we rely on Callum and Fraser to do a lot of the junior stuff.
Yeah, I mean, loads of what Cammy said there, like that wasn't in place last year, so training twice a week wasn't a thing until we put in a player feedback form at the end of last season. The S&C wasn't a thing until Cammy came along, and there was no provision for that, and that was part of the feedback that we got from the end of last season as well. And also within touch games, under 16s and under 18s, training with one another. Again, that's something that the players wanted themselves when we put out the feedback. What can we do to improve rugby at Trinity? What do you enjoy about training? And that's kind of came from them. We're just saying it now as if it's just casual, and if we've not really thought about it, but we've actually done a lot. Cammy said, in terms of my background, an English teacher, believe it or not, so obviously getting involved wasn't as easy because he's in the PE department. Started off last year, they needed a volunteer for the under 16s rugby team, and then all of a sudden next year I'm under 18s coach and then rugby champion, and then I've got these additional responsibilities. But it's good. I'm enjoying it, and I think we're doing a good job at pushing the sport and developing
it. Makes it easy when you've got a rugby background and you played yourself. Both played.
Not very well, but yeah.
We tried. Giving up now, that's why we've got a bit more time.
That's it.
You're on the cusp.
Yeah, I know.
Aren't well. I'm getting there myself. Obviously Trinity Academy is a developed school of rugby programme which is funded by Scottish Rugby. So you've obviously touched on the extracurricular delivery, how you've managed to grow the programme. How does that look during curricular time with the delivery of sessions to, as you mentioned, junior phase? Obviously you have support from, you said, Fraser and Callum.
Yeah.
So how does that look like, and how's that different from what you do after school or before school?
Yeah, I think one thing to recognise is the hard work that Callum and Fraser both put in. They lead our School of Rugby programme, so that is kids can then buy into that, and that's them. They get the opportunity to be part of extra sessions on top of our curricular stuff. In terms of the school, before any of that, we try and look to do the blocks within our PE curriculum. Like most schools will do like a block of football, block of rugby, block of hockey. So everyone from S1 to S3 is exposed to rugby for anything between 4 to 6 to 8 weeks sometimes. So it's definitely embedded within the curriculum. Everyone's exposed to it, boy or girl. You get the opportunity to be involved. A lot of the time that is led by the teachers, but if we've got Callum and Fraser available, again they get to take it. And then on top of that is your School of Rugby from S1 to S3, which is amazing. As Jake said earlier, the numbers are growing at that younger age group around S1, but the work they're doing around going into primary schools and exposing primary schools to it really helps with that retention when they come up, and they've kind of got a place to be. In terms of after that, I think when it gets to under 16, under 18 level, they don't really get it through the curricular side, because a lot of them will go off, and that's when you choose your subjects and that sort of stuff. So a lot of people aren't exposed to rugby after S3, so that's when the Tuesday, Thursday training becomes really important, and whether it's for playing on a Saturday or whether it's just for being part of the sort of squad and enjoying training and playing, then it's open to everyone. Everyone's allowed to come along and be part of it. There's obviously, we're quite lucky with our numbers. There's a bit of a competitive element to it now, which will have taken a little while to build, but that helps drive the standard. So if the more players you've got, the more you're then having to sort of makes our decisions a wee bit harder around selection and stuff like that for Saturday fixtures. But 9 times out of 10, you're just getting as many boys on the pitch as you can and giving them positive experiences, and you let them drive the standards in terms of what they want out of it. If their goal is to sort of win that little youth league, then we'll support it and we try and give them the tools that they need to go on and do that. So we're quite lucky with what we've got, to be fair. So,
is there anything that you do with session design wise to make it accessible? Obviously you mentioned design it so lots of kids can come into sport, but how do you design those sessions to not only make it accessible for those new kids coming in, no matter what age group, but also help it push the players that you've already got? Because obviously you've said last year the under-16s had a bit of a tough year. Now the under-18s, they've ended up winning the league. So what is it you've applied when you're designing and delivering your sessions that's impacted that?
I think it really comes down to identifying weaknesses within the team, and then tailoring sessions to kind of develop that technique on an isolated kind of basis, particularly for those that are new to the sport. We've had a few in fifth year, which is quite late, maybe 1 or 2, and you kind of have to take them away at the start before sessions, get them to focus on this technique, whether it's passing, whether it's head placement in a tackle, and then kind of encourage them to try and implement that within sessions, and then give them a bit of feedback. I think with anything, when someone's new to it, it can be quite daunting, and especially in a contact sport, in rugby, where building their enjoyment through games that might be, for example, say tackling is the thing I need to work on, playing their enjoyment of the sport through non-contact games, and then boosting their confidence within that. Well, then that allows them to drip feed into eventually semi-contact and full contact games, and they can develop that skill throughout. So it's about, I suppose, giving that one-to-one time when we have staff. That is one of the limiting factors in state school rugby, where we don't have all these resources, and that's off the back of coaches to do that, and that's how you grow numbers in a state school, because we don't have that many. So trying to keep the ones that we do get, and then grow it further by giving them that attention before they might decide to walk away from the sport because they feel inadequate or don't have the skill set to kind of match everyone else.
Yeah, I think look, I'll be honest, we are still learning, and I think the last maybe 2-3 months has been a massive example of that, where I think for me personally, coming into the school, I kind of saw it as a rugby school already, and I was then really keen to push it towards that performance side. I want us to be competitive. I want to really drive the standards, which has happened for the majority, but then there's also an element of you do have to remember that there's people there that potentially just want to be with their pals and they want to enjoy the rugby and just go have a game on a Saturday, which is absolutely fine. So I think we, as Jake's mentioned before, we are pretty hot on getting feedback, having those conversations, and there has been for the 16s potentially a bit of a drop off due to bad weather or potentially a lack of enjoyment and all that sort of stuff. So we've then gone back to our basics and implementing a lot more condition games. We did do lots of small-sided games and condition games, but I think as games get more competitive and the lads want to win more, you probably lean towards that structure, key skills. We've got what we call our game changers, which we try and encourage kids to go away and do position specific skills before training or after training, but we do need to recognise that not everyone's on that level. Not everyone's got the ambition to be at the next level, and they are just there for a bit of a kickabout, which is absolutely fine. So teaching through the game is one of our big work-ons at the minute, and trying to just give them problems that they can solve themselves. I think a lot of coaching now is about just giving them the answer straight away, so we're trying our best to let them figure that out themselves. And we've now got to the stage where we've actually covered adult level rugby detail, where we've given them a lot of tools, and it's now just a case of use them as you see fit. like you obviously talk about your 1-3-3-1 shape with your pods and all that sort of structure. Seeing some of like the under 16 boys slinging the ball out the back and tips and pulls and attacking wide and keeping the ball flowing, like once they've got that, it's really exciting to see. And now we're just at the stage where actually you've got all the tools. We'll top that up every so often, but we're just enjoying playing through games a bit more. And
I mean, I'll be honest, the stuff that I introduced with the 16s last year and then the 18s this year is stuff that I've learned from Premiership rugby and playing, and it's the stuff that I introduced it's undiluted. I've not reduced the complexity of it at all, so I think they enjoy that as well. And I think it's about having a high expectation of them and actually believing that they can do it. And I think that's probably why they perform so well.
Yeah, so you've obviously both touched on condition games to kind of get them to work on these higher level skills. Is there any kind of go-to game that you would usually use with your school of rugby kids?
School of rugby, I probably can't comment as much because, as we say, that a lot of that is to do with Fraz and Callum, who lead the sort of community coaching side of things. But in terms of the 16s and 18s, it's like anything. I call it hoik ball. I think Scottish rugby have different names for it, but just like that, the hand catch pass under pressure, constant moving, identifying space. We've been doing a lot of sort of kick chase, kick receipt as well, just to mix things up. The first thing everyone asks in a touch game is, can we kick the ball? So why limit them? Because at the end of the day, if they can't execute a skill in the game, then if they can't do it in training, then they're not going to have the confidence to go for it in a game. So we try and split it, focus on hand catch pass, then yes, right, now you're allowed to kick, get creative. We do things like limited touches in certain areas of the pitch, so if we're trying to get us to play a bit wider off 10 rather than off 9, it's like, right, you've got one touch between the two 15s and you get 2 touches in the wide channels. So it's, can you if you do come in, are you then looking to snap back and potentially attack down the blind side because you've got 2 more touches there, or do you think you can get wide now? And how do we achieve that? Do we use our structures? How do we, or do we want backs just flooding around the corner, that sort of thing? But yeah, like we just try and vary it. We probably put ourselves under a bit more pressure sometimes to come up with a new one every week, but realistically, as long as you've got your sort of basics, then it works most of the time. What about you? I don't know.
Yeah, we've done some variations of Bannockburn where players drop off and they have to identify the space and where to attack. But at under 18 level, we're trying to make it so guys shouldn't just be running into that space. Can we have like a move off a pod, a backs move, that it's about selecting the right option off that move to then go through that space rather than just running through it. I just said hoik ball as well. Yeah, I think for me, it's probably Bannockburn, but just because it's drop off touch and eventually numbers go down, and there's a variation of numbers that go down as well. So maybe one might just drop, but then the next time there's 5 that are scattered in different places on the pitch that have dropped, and just allowing the players to be creative in how they're going to create a try, score an opportunity, score points. I think that's been one for me.
We do quite a lot of scenario stuff as well, actually, and I got a bit of heat a couple of training sessions ago where didn't tell anyone, but I was just getting all the decisions wrong on purpose just to see how they react.
For me, yeah.
Because it's you as well. But just that sort of, again, problem solving, like if things don't go our way, how do you react? And it's giving them the sort of mental skills as well to cope with those situations. But we do like doing a lot of like pre-set up, right, there's your line out, this is the scenario, how you gonna execute, or what you're gonna do, and then
to allow the defence to paint the picture in order for them, the attacking team, to identify where the space is.
Absolutely, yeah. Penalties have been one of our big work-ons the last couple of weeks.
I think that's right across the Scottish game, to be honest. Yeah, but obviously you are talking about putting the kids in situations, you're developing those Scott skills, like you're making them self-organise, you're kind of making them think creatively about how to do that. Is there anything else that you do in the sessions to kind of empower the players while they're on the pitch? Because obviously you're coaching them after school, during school, but you can't be on the pitch with them. So is there anything else that you are doing through your sessions that helps empower them?
Can't speak for last year, but I know we've been doing a lot of like analysis now, and we try at least every second or third game to really break down the game and have a little look. We're quite lucky being a school. We've got like a teams page, so we can have our rugby teams page. And when it comes to analysis, I get a bit obsessive, but I like highlighting good areas and then just areas of opportunity. So things like, right, how would we do this differently? And we try to build a bit of conversation. Sometimes we get nothing back, and then we can do it in person and sort of present it in a classroom. But like, just in terms of building that holistic player, being able to show them on a screen is really beneficial. So we're quite lucky, but Trinity Ackies allow us to use their VOCam, for example. So that's something that we're very aware that not a lot of clubs have access to. So being able to look back at your games and take responsibility for your own performance and highlighting your strengths and your weaknesses, I think that builds a massive bit of resilience. But as you say, that's self-organised. They're then taking ownership and responsibility. They can come to you with their game changers that they want to work on that week. How often they do that, I'm not sure, but we post it on their teams. They can go away and watch it. We'll obviously have a look at it. Sometimes we'll focus on key stats that we want to get across, or just like the theme for the next week or whatever. But that's definitely something that I think's helped with building different views of the game.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a short one from me, but like on pitch, I try and ensure that it's player led. So if there's any issues that are happening, the way I kind of set it up is I'm trying to pull the answer from them rather than push it on them. So why is this going wrong, or what could we do better? Where is the space? What are the other team doing? Have you noticed anything about the other team? And that way you're actually drawing the responses from them. Because I feel like if you're always pushing the answer onto them, then you're taking away that identification part, and then you're taking away part of the learning, which is essentially what you want to do. You don't want to just give them the answer the whole time, as much as we're shouting on the side of the pitch, like trying to coach them from the sideline. Obviously can't happen, but trying to empower them a wee bit more in training, to kind of almost make them understand that actually most of the time they have the answers themselves, and they don't really need us to tell them.
Just building a bit of confidence a lot of the time. As you say, a lot of the time they do have the right answer. It's just back yourself.
So obviously you're kind of working on that kind of question stuff, but as teachers as well, what transferable skills do you see between your working in the classroom, whether it's classroom-based PE or as in the English department, and then taking that onto the rugby field as teachers, but also bringing some of your skills from the rugby pitch into the classroom?
I think for us as teachers, you're trying to develop the person. At the end of the day, like we've had a few conversations with certain boys in the group. Like, you got to care about the person first, and you're looking to develop them as well, and treat them as an individual. So I think from that teaching side of things, you're always looking at differentiation. How do you teach the individual rather than that sort of blanket approach of teaching the whole class necessarily. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I take into my coaching is everyone's different. You've got to treat them respectively and differently. So it's just recognising what that person needs, how they need to be coached, and allowing them to thrive in whatever environment's best for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a lot of peer learning into sessions where I'll just have members of the squad, a pack leader, a captain, go and take the forwards, walk them through the lineouts. If somebody doesn't know the lineouts, walk them through it, and that way we can focus on individuals who are maybe new to the sport, as we spoke about earlier, and give them more one-to-one time. So yeah, giving, I guess, responsibility to the players to lead parts of the session as well. It's valuable.
Excellent. So we'll just wrap up with just a top tip from each of you. So obviously there'll be teachers who are running their own school rugby programmes. They might just be starting out. They might be as established as Trinity's programme. But what's maybe a top tip from each of you that you would give to a teacher delivering rugby in a state school?
Ask them what they'd like to have more, see more, what would make them enjoy rugby more, and try and implement it as much as you can with resources and staff. 100%.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable. Like, feedback's been one of the biggest things we've looked at this year, and it's definitely helped us. But I think I would just say get started. Having come from a school where rugby wasn't really a thing, just get started, and like as long as you're visible and you're pushing it, people will come. So just get going.